The Oak Orchard Harbor in Orleans County. Make a morning run for Lake Ontario. Fish on means you'll experience the exhilaration of fighting that giant trout or salmon and hope there's enough line on the reel. Feel the burn of a half-hour battle as your friends cheer you on. This is what bragging rights are made of, whether you keep it for the cooler or give it back. Catch all the fun out of Orleans County's Oak Orchard Harbor. To learn more about our world-class fishing, visit our website at www.orleanscountytourism.com.
There you go. Woo!
Another reason I love New York.
The Oak Orchard River in western New York offers the chance to fish for several species of trout and salmon. And when it comes to big brown trout, it's world class.
Been coming here for 25 years. And really nice brown trout.
I've been fishing this since the mid-'80s. And what makes it special for me is the incredible size of the brown trout that we get out of this river.
Most people come here to fish for the world-class brown trout that are here.
Nothing else.
Some of the fish can be 15 to 20 pounds and be from anywhere from 31, 32, 33 inches long. World class. I mean, they're just, there's only like 5 places in the world, and this happens to be one of them where the brown trout get that big, and it's because of Lake Ontario. Lake Ontario is 600 feet deep, and it's cold, cold water in the bottom of it. And, you know, they spend most of their life in the deep water, and they come up in the fall to spawn.
In early November, I visited Orleans County, New York, where the river winds about 2 miles downstream from the dam and water port, the Lake Ontario at Point Breeze. I spent the night at Lynn's Landing, one of many businesses in the area that cater to anglers. But I started each day at the Archers Club of St. Mary's with local angler John Denniston.
I've been fishing the river since 1950. I was 10 years old. When I first started fishing here, it was all bass fishing. And smallmouths down below the dam, largemouths above the dam. And then in the late 70s, early 80s, they started stocking the salmon. And that went on for a few years, but then they started stocking more brown trout and steelhead, which is really what I fish for down here. There's world-class brown trout. The biggest one I've caught is 17, 18 pounds, was like 32 inches. This was my playground all my life down here, so it still is. Yeah, steelhead.
That's a steelhead?
Nice steelhead, yeah. Ain't very big, but it's a nice one.
In November, most anglers on the river are targeting the browns, but there's a good chance you'll hook in the other fish as well.
You have the opportunity to catch 5 different species of salmon or trout in this river. The king salmon, the cohos, the Atlantic salmon, and the brown trout, and the steelhead starting the end of September till April.
Give me a hand, man.
Absolutely.
Although the river can get crowded, when a fish is on, neighboring anglers always seem ready and willing to help land it. In this case, a huge steelhead.
You are my best friend, man.
Oh my gosh, that's nice.
Man. I fish here all winter, so we'll fish till April in this stream. It doesn't freeze because of the dam. And it's actually really peaceful. You come down here in the snow, and it's a nice place to be in the winter, you know. And you saw the fish. I mean, that's outstanding. So you can't beat it. Hot diggity dog. Thank you so much.
I got a bunch of them on it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Awesome.
While almost everyone around us was hooking in the big browns, I think it's an Atlantic. I've never seen a brown jump like that. John and I were catching everything but browns. In terms of diversity, I was having a great trip, hooking into a fine Atlantic salmon, a couple of feisty steelhead, and a big post-spawn king salmon. The kings, also known as Chinooks, eventually die after spawning. The proverbial zombie salmon.
Yes.
He's dead, he just doesn't know it yet. All spawned out.
Oh, yeah. The whole river changes every year after the spring thaw with the ice and everything. My nephew and I walk the river and find where the holes are because he's a guide. So we want to know where the good fishing is.
As luck would have it, we stumbled on the John's nephew, Brian London of Oak Orchard River Guide Service. He had 2 clients from Rhode Island, and like all good guides do, he had them on the river before sunrise to stake out a choice location.
We started at about 3:45. So you get up early and you see what you get up early for in a matter of minutes. I think we hooked up on a fish maybe 20 minutes after we started fishing.
I do full day guide trips for brown trout, steelhead, and king salmon. I'd say we had a pretty successful morning so far. Yeah. We've had several hookups and several landed trout.
I caught probably half a dozen fish this morning so far. That I landed. I probably hooked up 10. And my father had as many fish, if not more.
Fish. All right, fellas. That thing just refused to budge. I thought I was on the bottom. After spending the better part of a day and a half breaking off several huge browns, I finally set the hook on what appeared to be an average Oak Orchard fish. But even it was almost more than I could handle. What do I do now? Pray? With a down tree between me and the fish and a swift current working against me, landing this brown wasn't going to be easy.
Can you get your rod under everything? I don't think you can get under there. Oh my God. Yes, he is gonna. I can't believe he did that.
Sorry, fellas. Once we were all on the downstream side of the tree, we stood a much better chance of netting the fish.
Just keep the rod tip in toward the bank.
Please, 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 let me land this fish.
Hold it right there.
What a fish. You see him, John?
Keep him coming.
Please, 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 do not break, please. Oh, God. 7 minutes went by from hook set to net. It may not have been graceful, but it certainly was exciting.
Thank you.
I have never had a trout take me under a log before. What this guy did.
There you go. Beautiful.
What a beast. What a beast. It's hard to believe that browns this size and even larger are routinely caught on flies smaller than a dime. But that's the case on the Oak.
The fishing flies that we use here are mostly egg patterns. And it depends on the clarity of the water, the depth of the water, and if the fish are spooky, which size hook you use. We start out at number 10s, and we may go down to 12s and 14s. But they're 2X hooks, so they're pretty strong hooks. They don't bend them. And if you hook them in the jaw, you're going to land them. That is about maybe an 8-pound brown trout, male. Nice hook jaw up here.
Big kite.
Kite. Beautiful fish for the Oak Orchard River.
But here's the scary thing. This is probably an average fish.
That's
Close?
That's a little small.
A little small. You're killing me, man.
No.
So these ones that are breaking me off are on the big side.
Yes. About 10 here.
Let me get them in the water for a
It's about
second.
20 inches long.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I mean, not
Yeah.
much more than 20 inches long.
Yeah.
But
that's
girthy as
a
can
really,
be.
really nice fish.
That might be my best brown from a river.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a nice fish.
Oh, yeah. While the browns can get as big as 18 to 20 pounds on the Oak, I was happy with a relative dink by comparison.
If nothing else, it gives me a good reason to return. And while John and I released our fish, there were plenty of anglers who kept one or two for the grill or maybe a skim mount. You don't have to be an experienced angler to catch a world-class brown on the Oak, but you'll definitely up your odds if you spend time with a guide or someone who knows the river. If catching a trophy trout is on your to-do list, then you owe yourself a visit to the Oak Orchard River. I know I'll be back.
Hi, my name is Jesse Lee Packer. I'm the Great Lakes Fisheries and Ecosystem Health Specialist for New York Sea Grant. Today, I'm going to talk to you about the valuable king salmon in Lake Ontario.
Learning more about Lake Ontario's king salmon. King salmon represent one of the most important fish in the Great Lakes. Pacific salmon were originally stocked throughout the Great Lakes in the 1960s and 70s to control growing alewife populations that were dying off by the millions and fouling popular beaches. Since then, salmon fishing has become extremely popular in the Great Lakes. In Lake Ontario, king salmon grow larger than they do in any other Great Lake, and the fishery brings in millions of dollars annually to the local economy and helps support a variety of businesses around the lake. In an effort to better understand these important fish, New York Sea Grant personnel and Cornell University researchers are teaming up to learn more about king salmon behavior and movement. The collaborative project, funded by New York Sea Grant, is using newly developed pop-off satellite tags to track the depth and temperature where king salmon are located. The tags also contain accelerometers to tell when the salmon are chasing prey fish and swimming quickly to catch them. The tagging process goes a little something like this. First, researchers must find and catch the fish with the help and expertise of knowledgeable charter captains. Once the fish are landed, they are put in a styrofoam cradle to help keep them calm, and lake water is pumped across their gills so they can breathe. The fish are then tagged with a monofilament harness that connects the tag to the fish. The harness is crimped, and the excess monofilament is cut off. The tagged fish is ready to go. The fish are lowered back down to cooler water temperatures using another harness that is pop-free when the fish arrives at the depth where it was caught. The tags are set to pop off in 30, 60, or 90 days, or when the fish stops changing depths, like when it comes into a river to spawn. When they release, tags transmit their location along with some of the data collected. If retrieved, researchers can download even more information stored in the tags that was recorded once a second the entire time the tag was attached to the fish. The information provided by the tags can be used by scientists to understand salmon behavior, by biologists to inform their management decisions, and also by anglers so they know more about where actively feeding salmon might be located. Overall, the project aims to protect, maintain, and enhance the economically and ecologically valuable king salmon fishery in Lake Ontario.
The shores of Lake Ontario and Orleans County have long been an angler's dream. Recently named the World Fishing Network's ultimate fishing town, Point Breeze offers world-class fishing for lake trout, brown trout, and steelhead, as well as coho, Atlantic, and Chinook salmon. A full-service marina will help with all of your boating needs, while abundant tackle shops and one of the premier charter fleets on Lake Ontario can help you catch your next trophy. Numerous restaurants are available, and at the end of the day, our lodging facilities will provide you with a comfortable place to relax. Hook up with one of our finny friends right here in Orleans County. I love New York. Located in the lush farmlands of western New York, Orleans County offers some of the very best fly fishing opportunities in the country. From golden brown trout and acrobatic steelhead to powerful Chinook, coho, and Atlantic salmon, fishing prospects abound in the fall and winter. Whether you fish Oak Orchard or one of our other tributaries, you'll find uncrowded, wadeable waters to net one of these great species. Why not come and drop a line to our finny friends and see how fall fishing in Orleans County swims with color? I love New York.
the question is, why does a guy from Michigan drive all the way to New York to catch salmon? Well, there's a story here. About a decade ago, Lake Huron had a forage base crash, and that salmon fishery kind of went into a tailspin. And now, more recently, the same thing is happening in Lake Michigan. We're losing some of our alewife forage base, and so our Department of Natural Resources is in a tough spot. They have not been able to stock as many salmon as they have done historically. So our Lake Michigan and our Lake Huron fisheries are actually struggling right now. Meanwhile, Lake Ontario has had none of those issues. They have a tremendous forage base here, and the primary reason for it is that it's at the end of the Great Lakes chain. All of the water from the Great Lakes eventually drains into Lake Ontario, and primarily Lake Erie, which is nutrient rich, is pouring a lot of nutrient rich water into this fishery. So the forage base here has been doing excellent. They got alewives, they got emerald shiners, they got gizzard shad, they got lots of things for salmon to eat, and they've been stocking aggressively, and as a result the fishing is really quite excellent. It's not that far a drive either. From a guy that lives in Michigan, it's only about a 6-hour drive from northern Michigan to be able to drive here to catch fish. If you're in Metro Detroit, you can drive to where we're at here in Lewiston, New York in about 3 to 4 hours. So it's not that far to travel to get on world-class salmon fishing.
And this diver rod here, I actually took that same pink dotted Dodger or spin doctor that we were using, put the same meat rig on, put it out to the side, and caught one right away with it. Just a little guy. But that same setup that's been on Dad's downrigger that's been working all day, I duplicated it, put it on a diver, and we got a fish with it. I'm gonna need a pair of pliers on this guy, I think.
I got you covered here, Jake.
This has been the hot rotator today. It's Pink Dot 1 by Spin Doctor. And then it just kind of comes back to the business end here, this meat rig. Basically all it is just this head, and you'll put a chunk of meat in there. Then this little hole right here, you'll put a toothpick through there. That's all it is, just a chunk of meat that's rotating nice and slow in the water. And king salmon just can't resist it.
Jake and I really like coming to the Niagara Bar to target salmon, and there's a lot of good reasons for coming here. First of all, they got a great spring fishery. They also have an outstanding summer fishery as well. So there's lots of great time, anywhere from basically about the 1st of May all the way through June, July, and into August. You can have great salmon fishing here.
Doesn't really matter what size they are on riggers, they're always fun. You pop that rigger and get to reel down on a fish, that's so cool. Looks like another little jack here.
Well, we won't bring the net out on him. We'll just try to be gentle on him and get him back in the water. Nice eating size fish right there, but see what we got. There we go.
What we got going on there, Dad?
I got a fish. I need a net, I think. Not a big fish. I'm not sure what we got going on here.
I'll go grab the net quick.
Staying down, I can't quite see it here. Or just a jack. We'll see here. Ooh. There we go.
Like some black gums to me. Looks like a little jack king.
Historically, salmon fishermen have used copper line for getting deep. And this steel does exactly the same thing, but it doesn't have any of the, shall we say, user-friendly problems associated with copper. Copper tends to snarl, it backlashes really easily, kinks, and then if it does kink, you really can't fix it. The stainless wire is amazing stuff. It's easy to handle and easy to fish with. A medium-sized salmon, just a medium-sized salmon. Look at that. He just ate that plug. He got all the hooks in him. That maglip, he just chowed on it. You know, anytime you travel as much to fish as we do, you need what we call boots on the ground. Essentially what we do is we get ourselves a network of fishermen that we communicate with to find out what's going on and when it's going on. And when it comes to the Niagara Falls region or the Niagara Bar, there's a number of people that we use. We use Frank Campbell quite a bit, and we also use Matt Yomblowski. And Matt is one of those guys that loves to troll the bar. He's out there every available day he possibly can, and has been very gracious with sharing techniques and specific spots for us to try, and it's really helped us get on fish very quickly.
Between Ontario and New York, they put 1.7 million salmon into Lake Ontario. Combined with that, they put in a lot of steelhead, brown trout, lake trout. Our fishery is as good as it's ever been. We've got a phenomenal bait population. We have Lake Erie just upriver of us from the Niagara River. Lake Erie brings nice green, warm water in, full of phosphates, full of algae and phytoplankton, zooplankton that all the filter feeders can eat. So our bait fish population has a great supply of food coming out of the lower Niagara from Erie. which makes our salmon and trout fishery just phenomenal.
Special considerations provided by Eagle Claw, proudly made in America since 1925. Additional considerations provided by Fishhawk Electronics. Trolling without a fishhawk is called boating.
You know, early in the day when you're salmon fishing, your traditional gear is going to catch these fish. Your spoons and your plugs, your rotators and flies are going to catch them. But during the middle of the day when the bite slows down, meat rigs are the king out here. They're definitely going to catch fish when nothing else is working. So a lot of captains carry them, put them down during the middle of the day when things are otherwise slow, just to be able to get some bites when otherwise it might be kind of tough to get them.
Meat, meat, meat. That is the story of today. I'm telling you what, if you don't bring a couple meat rigs with you, at least put them out once that sun comes up and it gets to that lull in the day, you're really missing out. You're going to definitely get a couple more bites every day just by putting some meat rigs in the water. Woo-hoo-hoo. Yeah, let's hear that drag scream. Oh man, I love king fishing. There's nothing better.
I don't know, man, that's a jumper.
He's jumping out there.
You might have a different flavor on there, man.
That's one of the things that I love about coming to Lake Ontario. Every year we've came, for the last 3 or 4 years. You just really never know what you're going to catch no matter what time of year you're here. You can catch Atlantics, you can catch king salmon, coho salmon. I think this one's definitely, gotta get tight on him. He just came off, I think. He's still there. This is an Atlantic. No doubt about it. I just saw its tail. It's not chrome enough to be a steelhead and not the right color to be a king. I could be wrong on national television.
You're getting a good fight out of him.
But I would say this is a
kings. I'm not saying they don't jump, but generally kings don't do a lot of jumping, but Atlantics do. So you folks at home didn't get the pleasure of seeing that. That fish came 6 feet out of the water. I mean, he just rocketed out of the water, like what a steelhead would do.
That is a king, Dad.
It is a king. It's just
a spunky king.
It's just an ambitious king.
Wow.
Holy smokes! There
Big
you go,
fish too.
That fish must have been feeling some pain. That's the kind we're looking
for.
What a stud.
You know what? I'm okay with being wrong on a king like that. We gotta pull it out. Woo-hoo-hoo. Oh my goodness, Dad. Take a look at that king right there. Wow. I thought this fish was an Atlantic just by how much it was jumping. I mean, there was a time this fish came 6 feet out of the air. I mean, just right rocketing up, did not act like a king salmon. But with a king that big, I'll be wrong any day of the week as long as we're putting kings like this in the boat. The diver that we're using today is called a slide diver. I don't know if you've ever heard of a slide diver before, but it's a pretty cool system. What it does is it allows you to kind of vary the lead that you have back behind your lure. And in the Great Lakes, the lakes are getting clearer and clearer every year. So what you'll see is guys using standard divers and putting 20, 30-foot leaders on and hand over handing kings at the back of the boat. Well, in a small boat, it's really hard to do that. Long rods, it just makes it very difficult. So with a slide diver, it'll actually slide up and down the line, and I can determine how long I want that leader. Then when I click it over, I'll click it over into position there, and it goes out to the side. When I catch a fish and it releases, it'll actually slide down the line, and it slides all the way down to a barrel swivel that I have right here. So it's pretty cool, and then basically all you're going to do is just fight that fish with the diver tripped. You're not feeling the resistance of the diver, and then when that fish comes to the back of the boat, you can scoop it all at once. So it's just a nice short leader, makes everything compact. The slide diver is a great way to get long leaders, but still be able to scoop that fish in a small boat like we are in today.
Today seems to have been an interesting day for us. We've struggled to get to the better quality fish today. These young salmon are so active. They are just really hard to keep off our gear. Okay, let's see if I can get him to cooperate. Now he decides to get all excited. Don't get over top that diver line. Don't get over top that diver line. Whoa, whoa. I see what you mean about these meat rigs. They do give you a little challenge in getting that fish under control, don't they?
There we go, Dad.
There we go.
Nice fish.
That's a decent fish. Yeah. Good eating size salmon. He fooled me. I thought it might have been a lake trout because it wasn't fighting all that hard. Now I understand why he wasn't fighting all that hard. He wasn't all that big. There we go. Another salmon. Good one for the box. You know, a lot of places where people have historically traveled to catch salmon in the Great Lakes, places like Lake Michigan, Lake Huron, are really struggling currently to produce good fishing. That is not the case when it comes to Lake Ontario. Lake Ontario's fishing is as good today as it ever has been, and in fact, it looks like the future is very bright indeed here for those people who love to target silverfish.
Look at that king salmon.
Special considerations provided by Bait Rigs Tackle, America's innovator of fine fishing products. Additional considerations provided by the Ultimate Sports Show Tour, Michigan's premier sports shows.
You know, with all these rods in the water, we're going to need lots of rod holders, and so we're using different types of rod holders for different types of applications. So if we start all the way forward here where I'm at, this is what's called a rod holder tree, and this is what's got our core on it and our wire line rigs. We're going to fish these on inline planer boards. On the outside, we've got an offshore OR12. On the inside, we've got an offshore SST Pro Mag that's hauling that bigger copper wire, or in this case, I should say stainless steel wire. So this type of rod holder tree is ideal for this. As we drop down here, we've got a cradle rod holder, and a cradle rod holder is just absolutely perfect for diving planers. So we got our slide diver on this, makes it easier to put in. It makes it really easy to get out when you've got a fish. So we like saddle holders for that style of fishing. Then when we go all the way to the back to the downrigger, most people use the holders that come on the rigger. Jake and I prefer to use an extra tube holder and bring it in so that the rod is in line with the back of the boat. And this tube holder makes it super easy. When I've got a fish on there, all I have to do is just pick it up and start reeling as fast as I can, because a lot of times there's slack line in a downrigger when a fish bites and you got to reel fast. So this tube holder makes that just ideally perfect for it. So tube holders for riggers, saddle holders for divers, and trees when you're fishing inline boards and things like lead core, copper line, and steel line.
There we go.
Good job. Oh, I'm not even going to put this diver in the water. I'm just going to wait for a minute then.
Yeah, Dad, if you would do me a favor and pick up that steel line. So I was in the middle of setting that steel line when he bit. Woo! Listen to that drag scream, Daddy. This is day 2 of our Lake Ontario fishing adventure. And yesterday, it didn't get too rough not to fish, but it got too rough to film, you know? So we went in and got regrouped, you know, got a program together, came back out this morning, the wind died down. And just like any kind of king fishing, the sun's coming up and the drag is screaming. I love it. Woo-hoo-hoo, I can't turn this one, boss.
Well, you just take your time with him, and there's no hurry. There's no hurry.
You know, yesterday, the meat rig program that we were using was so good that we put a couple more of them out today. And I put this downrigger down. I don't even have all my lines in the water yet, and this meat rig fired right away. So I think this one's about 60 down, which is a little bit higher than we were fishing yesterday. But one thing about king fishing is early in the morning, they will feed out of the water temperature. Once that sun starts to come up, then being on that water temperature is super important. But just getting your gear in the water early in the morning, getting it in front of fish, you're gonna get hooked up.
Jake, I got a fish on my outside line. Now what are we gonna do? We got a double. Mine's a pounder too.
That one's screaming, yeah.
That's a screamer too. Double
I don't know if we got
action. Ooh, baby. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'll just work this one slow, and when you get close, holler. I'll run and grab the net. We'll see about tackling yours.
Oh, I got mine freaking out now. Every inch of line that I just got just went away.
Well, you're right about one thing, Jake. These fish are definitely out of temperature this morning. This rod was only fishing 40 down. So we know for a fact, because of our fish hawk, that that water is upper 50s, low 60s, so that's definitely not salmon water, but they're up there feeding because that's where the alewives are at. Well, one of the things you might want to think about when you're salmon fishing is just kind of keeping a cool head. I mean, it's crazy right now. We got 2 fish on. They're going back and forth. They run wherever they want to run. I mean, you can't stop a salmon. When he decides to go, he's going. And so basically, you just got to take your time, keep a cool head, and when it gets time to net these 2 fish at the back of the boat, I don't know how we're going to quite deal with that just yet, but we'll figure that out when we get there.
Oh, Daddy.
It's a big fish.
Look at that fish.
You're going to have to back up, Jake.
Woo. I'll back up when I get close. My legs are shaking. My heart's pounding. That is a big Lake Ontario king right there. Oh baby. I think we got him. Oh my goodness, Dad. Oh my goodness. Scoop!
That is a monster, buddy. That is a monster.
Giant.
Jeez. That is an absolute giant.
That might be the biggest king I've ever caught.
You get him picked up, I'm gonna get on my fish, man. My fish still out there. Well, big letdown here for me. My fish is nowhere near the size Jake's is. He was just hooked kind of funny, so he pulled in a little harder than usual. But just goes to show you. Look at he's just hooked horrible. Got it right in the side.
Let's get this big king up here. Catch my breath long enough to hold him up for the camera. Wow, is that a giant, Dad? Now it's only June. This king right here, you know, if he wouldn't have bit, would have got even bigger before the fall. The forage base on Lake Ontario is unbelievable right now. There are so many alewives in this system, smelt in this system, just kind of a king paradise. And when you put that much bait in a system, you get kings like this.
It's a beauty. It's one of the nicest kings we've caught in recent years, Jake.
That's a giant.
Congratulations, my son. That is a good fish.
Yeah.
Hey, just caught that fish on 10 color. Now it's time to reset up my planer board. And what I want to point out is that Offshore made a really new addition to their product line. It's something really cool. The flag itself has got a tab on it, and there's 4 additional holes for the tattle flag system. This is a spring operated system, and the flag goes down when you catch a fish and pops back up. Well, before, what would happen when you're fishing something heavy like lead core, it would pull so hard it would just pull the flag down, the flag would just stay down. Well, now with this extra spring tension by having these additional holes, I can actually fish a 10 color and that flag stays up. Well, why is that important? Well, I just caught a little small jack salmon. I might not have realized I even was dragging that fish on the planer board, but the tattle flag goes down and I know I've got a small salmon, reel that in, check it, set that line back out again. So the new tattle flag systems with tabs on them are just dynamite for knowing when you got small fish on, or maybe you're dragging a weed or some other type of debris. Works great.
Special considerations provided by Trailmaster Trailers, quality custom boat trailers. Additional considerations provided by Procure, ruthlessly effective bait suds.
You know, as a trout and salmon fisherman, we use a lot of gear, but one of the most important pieces of equipment that we use is called a fish hawk. What a fish hawk does is it gives us our speed down at the depth. More importantly, it also gives us temperature down at the depth. What we've seen today is that temperature has really fluctuated. We want to stay anywhere, you know, between that 50 and 55 degree range. That seems to be where these fish are feeding the most. But one thing about salmon is they will feed out of temperature early in the morning and then of course in the afternoon. But midday like we have right now, if you're going to be a successful salmon fisherman, you got to stay in that temperature zone of that 50-55 degree range. The fish hawk allows us to do that. It also gives us our speed down at the ball. And at some points today, we've been going 3 miles an hour at the surface just to stay about that 2.2, 2.3 at the ball. Now, why is that important? With a lot of different stuff in the water, like spoons and rotators, they're very speed-sensitive presentations. You know, being able to see what our speed is down at the depth is super important because it allows us to know what our equipment's doing down there. If we're going too slow, our spoons and our rotators won't have any action. If we're going too fast, those salmon might not want to bite that. So we're trying to keep that same speed, and that fish hawk allows us to do just that. Now, we've actually caught fish on just about all the presentations that you can think of. We've caught them on spoons, rotators, flies, meat rigs, you name it. But even better, we've caught them on all of our presentations. Divers, riggers, lead core, copper. That's when you know everything's working. We have 8 rods out right now, and every fish and every rod has been caught on a different presentation. So, hey, Dad.
Yeah?
This fish is ready. This fish is ready.
Let's take a look here.
Let's see here.
Lift, lift.
Go, ball. Yeah!
It's a good fish, Jake. That is a lamprey, and it's the scourge of the Great Lakes. They're an invasive species, and what they do is they latch onto the fish, trout and salmon. They literally suck the lifeblood out of them. This one's not going back in the water, no way, no how. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service does a lot of work to try to control these, but it's impossible to keep them under 100% control. This one is not going back in the water. He sucked his last blood from a Great Lakes trout and salmon.
It's been pretty much a meat rig game lately. You know, we've caught fish on all the different presentations like I was saying, but the meat rigs have by far outproduced everything. And the one thing we've done is we started with a lot of different things, but the meat rigs were catching more fish, so by the end, most of our presentations right now are meat rigs. And because of that, we've been able to put a program together, put a lot of these big kings like this in the boat. This will never get old. A lot of fun. These fish just never quit.
Well, since I got a lot of time on my hands, it's going to take me a while to reel this fish in. Let's talk a little bit about where we're staying. You know, we've been referencing Niagara Falls, but we're not actually staying in Niagara Falls. We're staying in a beautiful little town called Lewiston. And we really like it. It's quaint, it's quiet, it's got beautiful restaurants, nice motels, and it's about a baseball throw to the boat launch from where we're staying. So it's really convenient for fishermen. Also has a nice fish cleaning station back near the boat launch. So you got a good place to clean your catch once you get back. It doesn't get much better than that. Safe, beautiful, clean community that caters to fishermen. Now you gotta love that. A couple more feet here and then I've got the leader on the reel. So all the backing's on, all the copper line is on, and now we're into the leader. That's a good thing. That's the final milestone. Well, not the final one, but the next to last milestone. Now we got to get this fish close enough that we can reach him with a landing. Perfect. Uh-oh. There we go. Now we got him where we want him. Now we got him where we want him. I'll bring him right up here in the corner here if we can.
Want to back up a little bit? Nice fish, Dad. Oh boy, that never gets old. Look at that king. Whoa.
Oh my goodness. I hate to say I got my butt whipped by a fish, but I just got my butt whipped by a fish. These kings fight like nothing other, and I think that's the primary reason people are so enamored with them. King salmon fight like nothing else in the Great Lakes. Well, hey, my name is Mark Romanek, and you've been watching Fishing 401. If you love salmon fishing, you really need to check out the Niagara region of Lake Ontario. Is it good fishing, Jake?
Oh my God, unbelievable.
We'll see you same time, same place next week. Woo, baby!
Closed captioning is provided by Fishhawk Electronics. Fishing 411 is brought to you by Offshore Tackle, Yakima Bait, Starcraft Marine, Jay's Sporting Goods, Cisco Fishing Systems, Smooth Moves, Precision Trolling Data, Niagara Falls, USA, Motor Guide Electric Motors, and Lowrance Electronics.
This is the best way to bring in a king salmon. You leave it hooked up to the ball, you crank it up, you scoop the fish.
It does avoid a lot of the difficulties, doesn't it?